Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to give my thoughts on Creative Assembly's unexpected statement on the state of Total War and what I'm hoping it means for the franchise's future. Out of nowhere on December 14th, Creative Assembly released a surprise blog post titled, "A Message from Total War's Leadership Team." In the piece, Roger Collum, vice president of the Total War franchise at CA, spoke at length about the company's falling out with their community, plans for the future of both Warhammer 3 and Pharaoh, along with a long overdue acknowledgement of repeated failures by the studio's management. I'm not going to rehash the entire post, and we'll leave a link in the description for those who have yet to read through it, but I do want to discuss some of the points I found most interesting, surprising, and meaningful for Total War's future. To kick things off, it can't be overstated just how big of a deal it is to have someone in Collum's position speaking to the community in such a direct, open, and seemingly sincere manner. Yes, Rob Bartholomew, CA's chief product officer, penned the company's infamous statement attempting to justify the exorbitant price tag slapped onto Shadows of Change, or were shuffled out to take the heat for it, if nothing else. But to have someone as high up as the Total War franchise VP speaking directly to the players shows a recognition that this statement needed serious weight thrown behind it to carry any real meaning. Collum noted the frustration and distrust players are feeling, and that it's had a profound effect on CA themselves. He also reaffirmed that the employees working on Total War do, in fact, care about the franchise as much as we do, even if this hasn't been reflected in the company's recent actions. Some might see this as pure lip service, but I actually do believe him. In many cases, not only when it comes to CA and Total War, game developers are just as invested, passionate, and supportive of the products they're creating as the players consuming them. Just look at the recent leaks coming out of Bungie, where employees begged studio leadership to let them make changes that would improve sentiment towards the game, and were promptly shut down by the money-hungry bean counters, collecting their multi-million-dollar paychecks, paid for by the blood, sweat, and tears of those same people who just wanted to do right by their fans. Yes, CA has failed its players, many times over in fact, but I do still believe the studio wants nothing more than to see Total War succeed just as badly as we do. Collum then spoke on the current state of Total War Warhammer 3, and plans for the game moving forward. He began by admitting that Shadows of Change failed to meet player expectations for what a DLC should provide, something everyone already knew, although this is the first time CA has openly admitted as much. He then explained the studio will be releasing a major update to Shadows of Change, free for anyone who owns the DLC and for those who purchase it after this new content rolls out, currently targeted for release in February 2024. The phrasing major update is quite nebulous, and really doesn't mean much until we actually see what CA has planned. But according to Collum, Warhammer 3's game director, Richard Aldridge, whose well-earned reputation precedes him amongst the Total War Warhammer community, will discuss what this update is bringing in the new year. We'll need to see exactly what's in store before passing any judgment, but the fact that this content is being released for free is an immense show of good faith, and a testament to the studio finally recognizing just how badly they f***ed up and how hard they'll need to work in order to fix things. We'll circle back around to this a little later, but the fact that CA is not only allocating a portion of their workforce to create this update, but also releasing it entirely free of charge means they'll be taking a significant hit to their bottom line. This also indicates they finally understand, or are at least willing to admit, that sacrificing Total War's long-term health and viability for short-term profit was a terrible mistake. And this type of course correction is exactly what the franchise needed if it is, in fact, going to weather the storm it's now caught up in. Confirming what the entire community already expected, Warhammer 3's next DLC, Thrones of Decay, is delayed to April 2024, although that timeline is subject to change depending on how much effort is required on other fronts before then. Collum also stated that the studio wants to give players the amount of content they expect from add-ons released at a Shadows of Change price point. While this seems to indicate a price cut isn't in the cards, something we all knew was almost guaranteed to never happen, depending on what additional content CA incorporates into these future DLCs, their price could end up being justified by the quality and quantity of what they offer. But again, this is a case of wait and see. Creative Assembly also wants to make sure there is full transparency around new content before players are pressured to start buying it. Another obvious but important win. The pushiness surrounding pre-orders for both Shadows of Change and Pharaoh was downright unsettling, and frankly cringy, and I hope we never see that level of blatantly oversold marketing for any Total War products in the future. Finally, Collum reassured players that CA isn't done supporting the Total War Warhammer franchise, and is aiming to uphold their increased update cadence, putting out a new patch roughly twice a month, into the future when possible. While the truth of that statement remains to be seen, it's good for CA to publicly reaffirm their support and commit to this increased update frequency. Despite many missteps this year, the number of patches and updates for Warhammer 3 has been a boost for the game, and I'm hoping CA is able to carry this level of support forward. For my historical Total War fans watching right now, don't worry, there are several updates for you as well. and these are arguably more important than what was outlined for the Warhammer player base. The first, and perhaps most shocking piece of info, was that owners of Total War Pharaoh will receive a partial refund, because CA is dropping the game's price by 10 USD, or the local equivalent. This is a massive win for anyone who already bought Pharaoh, and will hopefully entice more potential players to pick it up. But it's perhaps the single most impactful change coming out of this news blast. Not only is it an open admission that the game was priced too steeply to begin with, but the fact that CA would take such a serious financial hit over a product that has performed so poorly already speaks volumes to how bad of a situation they found themselves in, and how far they're willing to go when it comes to mending fences with their players. The change is absolutely deserved, and again, should have been the game's price tag all along. In addition, Pharaoh's first paid DLC has now been repurposed into a free update, slated for release in 2024. This is also more work CA has committed to that won't net them any sort of immediate financial return, and is another clear sign of acknowledging the long-term health, sustainability, and profitability of Total War is more important than milking players dry without providing products that justify their costs. Column also reassured Pharaoh fans that CA isn't scrapping plans for more updates later down the line, and if true, this is another good sign. The last thing I'd want is another Three Kingdoms situation, and while Pharaoh certainly isn't on the same level in terms of popularity or significance, putting yet another historical entry out to pasture would not be a good look at all. There are also plans to expand the campaign map through yet another free update, along with introducing additional cultures and factions. While not a firm confirmation, this could hint at the idea of a combined Pharaoh-Troy campaign map, bringing Immortal Empires vibes from Warhammer 3, albeit on a smaller scale, to historical fans for their enjoyment, and is something I'd love to see. The blog also voiced the studio's commitment to investing more in player-facing communications, which will include highlighting specific individuals from the development team and giving them a chance to share their work and insights. That all sounds great, and coming from Destiny, where Bungie developers used to speak quite openly with fans through social media, podcasts, and more, hearing directly from people working on the games I play is always a treat. That being said, I'd implore the Total War community to not make the same mistakes some Destiny 2 players did by being so despicable towards these individuals that Bungie shut down all lines of personal communication between the studio and its fans. I understand and share your frustrations, but we need to remember that the developers care just as much as we do, want nothing more than to see these games succeed, and, most important of all, are human beings too. Whenever CA allows them to share glimpses behind the curtain, make sure not to be the bad apple that f***s it up for the rest of us. Column wrapped up the post by apologizing for the studio's missteps, and making an important admission that the blame for these mistakes lies squarely at the feet of franchise leadership. The apology and recognition is good, and long, long overdue, but we're far beyond the point of needing to see actions and not just listening to their words, which based on previous experience cannot be taken at face value. Thankfully, CA seems to be aware of this sentiment, and admitted that they have plenty of work to do. And, while this one statement won't change people's minds without seeing actual follow-through, they're set on showing a commitment to Total War through their actions in the coming months. Out of all the things I expected to see on a random December morning, this was most certainly not on my bingo card. That being said, it was a very welcome surprise, and, while still skeptical, I'm hopeful for the future of Total War for the first time in what feels like, well, forever. Whether you're a Warhammer fan, a historical enjoyer, or a true Chad who plays both, like yours truly, we've all had a rough go of it in recent years. Historical fans have been begging CA for another large-scale installment since the unceremonious abandonment of Three Kingdoms. And yes, while it wasn't labeled as such, Pharaoh is closer to a saga title than a mainline entry. With no Medieval 3 in sight, fans on that side remain in a precarious predicament. On the other hand, it's no secret that Warhammer 3 isn't the crown jewel it was meant to be. Between lackluster DLC and anemic update frequency, at least until recently, Realms of Chaos flopping hard, and being riddled with bugs that were solved back in Warhammer 2, the game's life cycle, coming up on 2 years in February, has been anything but smooth. Being a Total War fan has been tough, suffering through disappointment after disappointment, always hoping for good news but more often than not getting nothing but bad. Frankly, it's been tough to find a silver lining, but this statement has me feeling hopeful for the first time in a very long time, and a little bit of hope is exactly what we need right now. Yes, CA could be spouting out lip service to keep players placated just a little longer, and all those free content updates and promises to the community could come crashing down, potentially sealing the fate of Total War forever. But it does seem like CA has finally recognized the true gravity of the situation and are dedicated to dragging themselves out of the hole they're in, no matter the cost. And I, for one, will be rooting them on every step of the way. I've been a Total War fan since I was 7 or 8 years old. I somehow managed to get my hands on a copy of Shogun 1, and the rest, as they say, is history. Total War has been a massive influence on my love for the strategy genre and video games in general, and I wouldn't be the same gamer I am today without it. So, despite the franchise's trips, stumbles, and tumbles down into the pit of greed, neglect, and disregard for their players we've all found ourselves in, there's nothing I'd love more than to watch CA work their way back to being the renowned developer that's given me so many fond memories over the years. And I finally have hope again that they might actually be able to pull it off. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more gaming content, and let me know how you're feeling about the future of Total War in the comments below. You're a real one and I appreciate you. Catch you later, homies.